Okay, the recording is in place. I usually forget that, so I'm glad I remembered and I started that. All right. Um, the agenda for tonight is going to be slightly altered. I was unable to attend a meeting, and George was kind enough to give us an update on that meeting. Oh, before I begin, just some norms, just to get that out of the way. Equal voice, equity of voice. Please be respectful in your commentary to anyone. And we're all here for the same purpose, and let's keep that in mind of making our Community Board 12 the best that it can possibly be in terms of beautification of our environment and just making our neighborhood beautiful, basically. So with that being said, George, you want to share out your information, please?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So I'm actually forgetting what day it was, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I met up with, it was Ursula and myself came, Dr. Burke, Judy Hudson from the East 222nd Street Block Association, and Daniel Reynolds and Maggie Greenfield from the Bronx River Alliance. We had gone on a walk, which was something that we had been planning for quite some time, but it was just, we kept missing each other. Dates didn't necessarily line up. But it was just to get an idea, a look at Shoelace Park. Matt could probably explain a little better, but Shoelace Park has a grand capital plan that is before the community or the community board. It's supposed to be done in sections because it's so big. I forget how much it costs, maybe like $150 million if we were able to do everything in one shot. But anyway, the reason we got together was to sort of start to prioritize the needs of the community in terms of what should we ask for when we're meeting, when we submit our district needs statement as a community board, which is one of the obligations we have to do every year. So in walking through it, there was a lot of work that was already done. Bike paths were put into the park. You know, there was a lot of construction over the summer before and last summer during the pandemic. There was a lot of construction going on, creating these bike paths and sort of sitting areas. This was done with a federal grant, I believe. They did it. It looks really, really nice. But we just had a major event in our storm event where I don't think that our park actually got flooded. Again, Matt can tell us for sure. But one of the problems that does happen when rain events like that occur is that the parks, which are sort of below grade, below Bronx Boulevard, they get flooded out. Because of the Bronx River. So one of the requests that they want to do is move the parks to higher ground where they put these, where they put the new bike paths and walking paths and stuff like that. Especially, and there's two of these sort of like children parks or tot lots that have bathrooms. I forget what they call them officially, but they have restrooms that
stations, I believe it's something like rest stations or something like that.
Yeah, they want to move those up to higher ground because obviously they have to use pumps now in order to push the plumbing. Whenever they flush the toilet has to go uphill to Bronx Boulevard where the city sewer is. So again, that's the reason and the rationale for what they wanted to do. But one of the other things that we sort of discussed, and we're not necessarily nailed down because we had asked the Bronx River Alliance to send us something. We asked Maggie Greenfield to send us a request in writing, was they have this, if I'm not mistaken, it's right on 222nd Street. They sort of have this grand open space there that they don't necessarily know what to do with. Right now, it's painted like waves. So, we were sort of spitballing that maybe this is where one of the conversations for that we had then was about, what do you call it? Sort of creating an amphitheater or some place where people could gather and like watch concerts and stuff like that. With moving one of those rest stations to that area. So, it again, like, we were just sort of throwing ideas all over the place. And, maybe the thought was if we built one structure, it would be more economical for the city to sort of build a smaller stage area that had like a restroom behind it, but also a staging area for, whoever was going to perform or whatever was going to perform. And it was going to be sort of a multi-use type of stage where you could do music concerts or you could do smaller things, plays or something to that effect. But again, a multi sort of outdoor, a multi-purpose outdoor space that also had a restroom to it. And if that was okay, like, we said, if that's the Bronx River Alliance's main priority, then, we would bring it back to the community board and we could vote on these things. We would present it and to the board. And then if the board was in favor of it, we could prioritize it and put it in our district needs statement. And again, one of the reasons we were doing this was because from my perspective, I don't think that, I mean, we can make any sort of request that we want. There are a lot of community boards that do pie in the sky sort of requests, but it really doesn't go anywhere. I like to make requests that we know are going to get someplace. I mean, it took us more than 20 years to get the recreation center, but that was our number one priority for many, many years. And now that the Y is finally built, we were able to take it off of the district needs statement. Shoelace Park is now our number one priority for the last 2 years. But I think, again, the scope of that project is so grand, $150 million. Parks has to do it in phases. So we want to sort of push it along and be able to go to our council members, Dinowitz and Kevin Riley, and say to them, hey, this is more affordable if we start just doing it in sections. Let's start moving the bathrooms up. Let's move one of the parks. That would cost, again, I don't know what they have to come back to us with the numbers, the Bronx River Alliance, but they would come back to us, tell us that, we think it's going to be X amount of dollars, $5 million to do that. Then we could prioritize that within our number one priority. We could say, well, we want to move again, I don't know if those parks are individually named inside Shoelace Park, those tot lots, but we would say we want tot lot X with the restroom moved up and put at the East 222nd Street open space and stuff like that. So that was basically what the meeting was. Again, there was no the consensus was that we were going to that the Bronx River was going to come back to us to have one of the restrooms moved. That seemed the most feasible. But in moving the restroom was also asking for a sort of multi-purpose space so that other things and other events could happen there as well. But that was it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that information, George. Are there any questions?
George,
any comments in reference to what George has presented?
Just one thing.
Yes.
I went running in the park on September 2nd, the day after the storm. The basketball courts had disappeared, and at 219, or at the bottom of the park was all flooded. The water came halfway up the hill. And the RC park was totally covered. I have pictures. The park was totally underwater, the whole thing. So it did flood. Number two, the project that they did in the park, that wasn't supposed to stop at Gun Hill Road.
Oh, I don't know how long, like the length of it. Matt, do you know the length of it?
Yeah, it was supposed to stop at Gun Hill Road.
Okay.
So it was for Shoelace Park. That's Shoelace Park goes from Gun Hill all the way up to 233rd. When you go below that, that's a different section of Bronx Park.
Okay.
So then you're getting into Bronx Park Zone 3, which is we call Rosewood section. But yeah, but this last project, the 3 phases that were constructed were from, it was north of Gun Hill Road all the way up to 219th.
Okay.
So they didn't complete it. Is that what you're saying?
No, they did. It's completed. Yep.
It kind of stops at like 2 13th. Doesn't go all the way to Gun Hill. That's just
No,
my observation.
correct. That was the end of the design. Yeah. So it is complete. The extra block or two that you wanted to take it to Gun Hill, that wasn't in the design. So the project is complete.
Maybe that infrastructure bill could get us some money over here.
Clinton, the basketball court that you're referring to, the one I think you said it was 219th Street.
Yes.
Is that the one
with the top lot? With the top lot.
Oh, okay. That's the one that's attached to the top. Okay. Because there is. Go ahead, Matt.
As far as just orientation, and there's 2 playgrounds. So these top lots that you guys are referring to are official playgrounds, and we have 227th Street Playground. That's the official name of it. That's at 227th Street. That's the one north. And Olinville Playground. That's the one at 219th Street. And both of those have the accessory buildings, the comfort stations, as we call it.
There you go, comfort station, yeah.
Have the bathrooms in them. And as I think Clinton Mike was saying, he observed it correctly. They sit in the low part of the floodplain area of the park. So Street Lakes Park, Bronx Park, that area serves as the floodplain overflow for the Bronx River. And we put our comfort stations in our playgrounds in the lowest point in this park. And so there was 12 feet of water from the base of the comfort stations during that flood event right before Labor Day. And I have pictures where the water is just about at the top of the roof. So the entire buildings were underwater. The entire playgrounds were completely underwater. But the walking path, which further up, it's elevated, the one that just came out of construction, that none of that was underwater. That we did that at the higher elevation. And I did a full debrief with Maggie and the Bronx River Alliance after your walk through George. And I wish I was able to make it, but I didn't have it in my calendar till the last minute. But anyway, that's the logistical problem is what Maggie was referring to. How do we get those features of the park, the playground, the comfort stations, which have the bathrooms, to a higher level? Because right now they're at the lowest place, and at any serious rain event, we get flooding in them. Not to the extent that we saw before Memorial Day, but the Bronx River comes up. If we get a 2 or 3 inch rainfall that's over the course of 18 to 24 hours, which happens pretty regularly, the Bronx River will rise all the way up into the playgrounds, and that's a normal event for us. And then it recedes back out within a day. Now it's not flooding the comfort stations, but it's in the playgrounds. The water's in the playgrounds, and we'll get maybe 6 inches of water in the bottom of our comfort stations. And those do have bottom drainage areas. So if water comes in, let's say for instance our utilities, someone does vandalism to our sink and there's water coming out, there's drains in each one of those that to take all that water and to put it into the main drainage system, which is then it uses ejector pumps to move it all the way up to the Bronx River, the Bronx River DEP lines to take the water out. So everything we do has to be mechanized to get the water out of those areas. That's what we have now. These things were built a long time ago. So it's all in the master plan. But how do we get there?
Yeah, one of the things that they did speak to us, Maggie spoke to us. Right now, if you look at the Bronx River along that path, it's kind of a straight line. And she also spoke to although I don't know if this was part of the master plan, was they wanted to make it more natural because a lot of that stuff is infill. So previously it looked very jagged. It kind of looked like a wave. They wanted to, put curves in it and stuff like that. So that I guess the river would have more space to go, for lack of a better terminology. So, it was an interesting meeting because I had never realized that aspect of it. They wanted to restore some of the natural features that were there in the park before to sort of alleviate the flooding problem.
Right.
So it was an interesting meeting. Just for my board members and actually any constituent, I have the master plan. I have a hard copy of the master plan in the office, in my office. So I can make it if anybody wants to see it. I mean, I can't email it to anybody because it's really big, but
Okay.
you're more than welcome to look at it.
Right. Could I say a couple of things with regards to that master plan?
Yeah.
The master plan is a long-term conceptualization document. It's not an official planning document from the Parks Department. The Bronx River Alliance is a licensed private parks partnership that works with us, but they don't have autonomy over the park, which is the Parks Department. They act as a private parks partnership that guides for and does most of the environmental stewardship and regulation and helps to put together a long-term conceptualization of what we want to do with that area. But ultimately, the alliance doesn't have final decision. They have input into it, but they don't have final decision on this is what's going to happen. That still has to go through the parks capital process because it's all public funds that we're using. So the fact that there is that plan is a great plan. It's a great way to project forward and say this is things that we want to work towards, but that doesn't eliminate the roadblock or the hurdles of the process within city government that we still can't get away from. It still has to go that way. It still has to go through capital. It has to get the funding allocated. It has to go through procurement. It has to get assigned the contractor, and it has to go through the design process, which is part of the earlier stuff, and then it gets allocated the amount of time for the construction. So that stuff doesn't change regardless of whether we have this document or not, but it's at least a place to start where we could have good discussions on the direction we want to move in 5 and 10 years looking forward. And then the community gets, to take a look at that. So that's great that you have it, George.
Right. And so in this, the community board can probably help with that in terms of having the discussions with our local politicians about the funding, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right. Your local politicians just did
Yes.
a huge funding for another park in district or community board as well, too.
Hafen Park project, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were at that
30+
meeting,
million.
right, Denise?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a major project. And I mean,
that's big.
I don't want to, I mean, if Denise, you wanted to speak about it, but I just got to comment on that. I mean, I was on the meeting briefly because I think that was Monday the 18th. We had an executive meeting that same evening, and we also had the borough president community board orientation for new board members. But I just think I was walking home from dropping my car off, and Carl Heastie, the assembly speaker was on there, Assemblyman Carl Heastie, Kevin Riley, and Jamal Bailey. And this is the first time, well, I shouldn't say the first time. This was a meeting that, it was almost like inside baseball where, Carl was telling the parks commissioner, hey, they had a concern about the size of the indoor facility at Hafen Park, and they wanted to make it larger so that more groups could use it. And Carl was kind of telling them, don't worry about how much it's going to cost. Just tell us what it is that you want. And parks
just make it happen.
Yeah, they were like, no. We're good with this. We're going to be removing barriers within the structure, and and they're like, no, it's okay if you need, just tell us how much and again, you usually don't get that when you work with government. You get the opposite. Oh, well, if we got everything that we wanted, it would cost $30 million, but we don't have $30 million, so we have to make sacrifices. Here you had the opposite. You had people like well, it's going to cost us $15 million to do X. I'm making these numbers up. We can do it. And then you had the elected official saying, no, 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 give me the pie in the sky. What is it that you want? Like, let you guys decide what it is that you want. Tell us what you want. It's size wise, maybe we can extend this half of the building if you knock down this wall. And again, it was I don't want to say that the Parks Department was reluctant, but it was just like, it's a process. And I don't think they wanted to revisit that process because they did get all the money and like they're ready to rock and roll on it. So like, it was amazing to me. That's all. I mean, I was walking and I was like, wow, no, do something better. Like, I didn't even know. I couldn't even think of anything to do, but I'm like, make it bigger, make it twice the size then.
Long it's long overdue. Long overdue.
Yeah.
We need our share. We need our share. All
We
right.
need our share.
Thank you so much for that, George. So with that being said, I have a few things that I wanted to go over. Hold on, let me just switch my screen here so I can get to, okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the composting program. There are dates coming up for leaf composting in the Bronx that I wanted to make mention. Composting is good for the environment. It's good for our parks as well. So that's something that is officially, oh, okay, yes, George, I see you. Okay, thank you. That's something that is very important. Hold on one second. I have a flyer here that I'm just trying to pull up. Oh, here it is. Okay, so on December 13th in the Bronx and Queens, in the Bronx is covering community boards 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. If you set out your leaves after 4 p.m. on these dates, then it will be picked up. You can place the leaf bags out or in unlined containers for collection. They say they request no plastic bags. If you need leaf bags, you can actually go to nyc.gov /leaf collection in order to get the free leaf bags. So that is something, once again, that will be good for the environment. Also, to that end, in Community Board 12, we have the opportunity, if people are interested, to have composting come back to our residents. We had it at one time where we got those big brown garbage containers for the composting, and then they also gave out the small containers to keep inside the house. That is something that if we want to see that revisited by the sanitation, we have to actually sign up. So that's something, I think that it's, like I said, good for the environment, good for our community. If you're interested, please do make note of that and go to the sanitation website or call 311 and they'll give you more information about the composting program. Okay. Any questions in reference to that? All right, moving on. Matt, we have a couple of questions for you on the agenda in reference to, hold on one second, let me just switch my screen. In reference to the safety issues at Stars and Stripes Park. So just to, the question really is, park attendant. I know that we were very thankful to have the park attendant there over the summer, but we wanted to make sure, when was the last date that the park attendant was going to be in Stars and Stripes Park?
Well, there is no set date. I mean, we shift staff around all the time. So we don't have staff that is assigned to Stars and Stripes. We put them in Stars and Stripes. They might be there 3 days a week. They might be there 2 days a week now. So that's entirely depends on the needs of the district. And so sometimes, stuff gets changed around daily just because of our staffing levels and what's going on at other parks. You guys have 12 parks and playgrounds in CB12, so
Right.
We're constantly, we have to deal and take care of all of them. So
Understood. But so the park attendant, I know that the park attendant was there during the summer at
mhm.
least 3 days a week, right?
Yep.
And so now you're saying that that will probably go down to 2 days a week, and you're not so sure of the timing of that. But and so
No,
that
we aren't doing two shifts too right now. We're back down to just one shift, and we do put fixed post people at Stars and Stripes. I just don't have a set schedule for that.
okay. All right. All right. When you have is there any way that you could give us more information so we have an idea? And the reason that I'm asking about this, because we had a safety issue in Stars and Stripes, and we feel that some of that could be alleviated if a park attendant was there um at certain hours. So that's why
What
we wanted to see if we could work in conjunction with you to have a park attendant there at a certain time.
It's possible.
Okay.
Could you elaborate on the safety issue?
Sure. So there, we seem to have an issue with actually, Renee Patterson. Are you here on the line, Renee? Renee, are
Yeah.
you there?
Yes.
Yes. Actually, if you could speak to the exact safety issue that you witnessed, and so that we could have more information for Matt, so he could give us maybe an idea whether or not we can get the park attendant there during those times, and then we're also going to try to work with park enforcement. But if you could just expound on the issue that we have.
Yes, the third week of October, we had some young people that came from John Philip Sousa campus. Anybody that knows John Philip Sousa campus, there's three middle schools in that building, and the kids are being dismissed, but they're not going home. They're going into Stars and Stripes playground. And it just so happened that day that we had a child that pulled out a knife and was fighting another child with a knife. So a couple of the kids ran up to Baychester Avenue where we happened to be with the chess kids. And we called the police and then ran into the school to try to get a principal or someone in a charge in the building to kind of identify who the kid was. And they came out, one of the principals came out and went with us down there to try to stop, the fight that was going on. Of course, when they saw the principal and the school safety officers coming, the kids dispersed. But this has been an ongoing problem since school has been in session since the third week of September, that the kids are not going home. They're going into Stars and Stripes playground and they're wreaking havoc in Stars and Stripes playground. And both the times that I've been there, which has been maybe 5 times since September, uh, after dismissal, there's been no park attendant there.
Right. So Renee, we're saying that we would like the park attendant there after 3.
Yes, I mean, I don't think the park attendant would really have to stay any longer than maybe 40 minutes to an hour because especially now with daylight savings time, I mean, it's dark very quickly and just long enough that, it'll be a deterrent for young people not to congregate in Stars and Stripes playground, in and out of the restrooms, I think it would be a help since PEP is very understaffed and most of the police department is dedicated to Baychester Avenue's safety corridor from the number 5 train to the Bronx number 16 bus.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you for filling me in on the specific of the safety concern. I'll comment right on this right now. I'm not putting a park attendant in there for a safety concern like that. That's agency policy. We're not going to put somebody that is not trained in enforcement in a situation where they have to deal with a potential hazardous thing. So a park attendant is not the option. Okay. increased patrols by PEP is the option, and I've already made the request because I saw this on the agenda, and I'll give PEP the specific information to this between 3 and 5 per day, and that's all that parks will be able to do. If you see anything, call NYPD. This is not an isolated parks issue. That's a safety concern. If PEP is there, they could handle it and be the presence and the deterrence. But yeah, I'm not going to put an untrained untrained park attendant, which is just maintenance and operations staff, fixed posts in there in situations like this.
Okay.
So, but
well,
we will be increasing our patrols there with our parks officers.
okay, perfect. That's what really we're looking for. It would if we could
Yep,
get 5 days.
absolutely.
If we could
That's how
get
we'll respond. Yeah.
okay, if we could get what we're looking for, just so that we're clear, 5 days a week from 3 to 5 for 2 hours
Okay.
a day. That's what we're really looking for.
That's what I put the request in for increased patrols. Now you're
Perfect.
not going to have a presence. You're not going to have someone that stays in the park, but they will be checking periodically daily at the park and coming to that park location to see
Right.
if
And if we could do
there's
those
yeah,
specific
and
hours.
yep, those hours, 3 to 5,
Specific
no
hours.
problem.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that.
No
All right.
problem.
Any other questions or comments on that particular point? Okay. Moving on, we would also like an update on any capital projects that we have in CB12 at this point. In particular, we're looking at the fencing along the East 233rd corridor there by Wilder Avenue. If
Right.
you could give us any information on that, Matt.
Sure. Well, right now there's 2 parks. That's the one. And there's a lot going on with the Halfin, and I don't have specifics on the Halfin stuff. But 233rd, they are they we have an accepted bid, so that's a good sign. They are vetting the bid right now, and as soon as the bid is vetted and confirmed, and then it'll go into the capital project award process, and then the construction starts. So we're right at the process right before construction. So it's at the end of procurement,
Okay.
which is the middle stage. You have
So,
design, procurement, and construction.
okay. Design,
So
procurement, and construction. All right.
right.
So that is good to know that it's moving along.
Yes. So I did get word that there is an accepted bid. Now everything they have to, before they award the contract, they have to check everything out with the contractor. They have to do their due diligence to make sure that this contract is not going to go into default. And so
Correct.
that's why it takes time for us to do this. Then we award the contract, and then they start construction.
Okay.
So it should be soon. I mean, I think that's a good place to be. I hope you receive that as a good report that construction is
Yeah,
close.
I think that at least we know that it's moving along in the
Yeah.
process. Are there any other capital projects other than Halfin?
Well, Halfin is being done in so many different small phases. We already started the pre-design test contract. So we awarded a whole bunch of contractors that they come in and they do perk tests in the park, they do drill testing, they do the sewer system tests, they do all the probing. So that's currently going on right now. That's where you'll have an outside contractor that will go and they'll scope every single drain in the park and get a video of it so they could see the levels that they need to redesign and reconstruct everything down to the drainage system in the park and the infrastructure that goes above that. So that information stage of this pre-design stuff is currently going on, and that's all I have for you with that.
Okay, perfect. Any other updates that you want to share at this time, Matt?
Nope, that's all I have.
Oh, okay. All right, great. All right, any other further comments or questions on capital projects? Okay, moving right along. That really was the last item on the agenda, except if you have any other comments or questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the questions now.
This is Renee Patterson. Matt, the stewardship program will be in Seton Falls Park this Saturday from 9 to 12. Did you get the email?
Hey, Renee. Yes. Yeah, I'm in full support of the stewardship program. I think they've been doing great work, and I'm aware. I sign off on every permit, and they put in for a permit for every single time that they have the event there. But thank you for mentioning it. Um, this is one of the better stewardship programs within a park that's been consistently going on for, I'd say, the last 4 years. Is that probably accurate?
It is.
And so that alone is probably the longest program we have within one park that's currently in all 5 boroughs. Where so that tells you that there's enough people that help out, and the design and the people and the employees that put this together, enjoy coming back to Seton, and they're seeing the fruits of their labors. So I it's a good one, and I fully support it. And you were
Right.
one of the Renee Patterson was one of the spearheaders to get them there, I think, like 4 years ago.
Sounds accurate. Any other comments or questions? All right. Just for everyone that's on the line, just please keep in mind if there is anyone who wants to form some sort of a green space or a garden or anything like that, please have them reach out to the community board, and I will put my email address in the chat so that this way we can continue to beautify our neighborhood. Let me just put that in the chat for everyone. My email address.
At any time, too, I want to just refer back to the incident that happened at Stars and Stripes. We don't have to wait till community board meeting to get me to alter and get Pep out there and do specific spot checking on a park during specific times. So just shoot me an email, Denise or
Okay.
Renee,
Okay.
and just let me know a brief description of the incident that happened. And if this happened on a Tuesday and I find out about it that Wednesday, I could have the our parks officers change their assignments around to make sure that they're getting up there during that time, starting that day or at least the next day after. So I want to be proactive in response to stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Matt.
No
Hi,
problem.
this is Claudette Forbin. Ms. Bond, you just mentioned that for green space, are there available lots or areas that are open for green space?
No, I don't know of any available lots. We are working with another set of interested parties, and I think it's something that would benefit our community, but I think that we have to look as a community at the spaces that are available within our community and start doing some investigating rather than waiting for other people to then come in and maybe cultivate or put up another small apartment building or something like that. If we take those spaces and make them into community gardens or things like that. So I think that once we have more of an interest from people within the community, that would be good. It's taken a little while for the other organization to find a accurate space. I'm sorry, the appropriate space. So but I would like to know if there's more of an interest for people to do that. Then that's something that we can, start to work with Green Thumbs and really cultivate something like that.
Because there used to be
Yes,
a community
some-
garden on
Hold on, I'm sorry. Wait, there was someone else. Go ahead, Miss Forbin. Go ahead.
there used to be a community garden on like 221st Street and Bronxwood. I think that's correct, Clinton. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that disappeared under an apartment building.
Right.
You know, but we don't have to just make community gardens, but rather just have the same type of beautification projects that you see down in Manhattan, where you have like a center area where there's plants, where you have trees, that are lining a street corner, as opposed, so that kind of changes the look of the neighborhood. Garbage cans would be nice. Recycling cans, would be nice. Because that's a big problem, for green space, is that there's no, when I was growing up in this neighborhood, there was garbage cans outside. Now you can't do that. And now there's no place for people to throw garbage except for into the street. What homeowners are now doing is they're hanging garbage bags from their fence to give people a place to throw garbage. Maybe if we, as a green space, we had like recyclables, trash, paper, plastic, strategically through the, every like so many blocks, so that people would have someplace to throw their trash. Right. That would be a great project to have.
Right. We have tried to get, well, in particular around the area of the parks. That's something as a community board, what you're referring to, that's a wider topic that we can take up as part of like one of our, maybe our general meetings, to figure out like how can we get and I believe that's something that would have to go through sanitation as to how we can get more garbage pails placed within the community. But the green spaces that I was referring to before is that if someone has an interest in cultivating something like a community garden, we can always do something where we're beautifying an area for sure. But we need to, set that up as a working organization, and the way to go through it. I'm sorry, I can't talk. It's late in the hour for me. Would be through Green Thumbs. So the more interest we have and the more people we can get involved, I think would be the initial step, in my opinion.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much.
And if you think of any, I'm sorry?
I was asking to say your email because we are not online. I would like to have your email.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I put it in the chat, but my email address is, sure, I will say it, no problem. My email address is D as in Denise, Bond as like in James Bond, BOND, CB12@gmail.com. So once again, that's D Bond CB12@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So I don't have any other items on the agenda. If there's anyone that has any further comments or questions, please feel free to make them at this time.
I have an announcement. This is Renee. Bissell Gardens last day for their green market, which is at Baychester Avenue and East 241st Street, is the 14th. No, the 13th is a Saturday, the 13th of November. So if you would, it would be nice to support them. They have 2 farmers that come down from upstate New York, and their last farming day to sell is going to be November the 13th, Baychester Avenue and East 241st Street.
Renee, they're only there on the Saturdays?
Only there on Saturday.
What time are they there?
They start at
What time are
10
they?
o'clock in the They start at 10 o'clock in the morning and they stay till about 3, 4 o'clock.
I didn't know we even had that.
And they take I forget, they take EBT also.
Right. It's good
Okay.
to know.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that that was going on myself.
Yeah.
Okay, they've been there quite a while, for many years, but
Okay.
they're only working on Saturday this year.
Oh, okay. All right.
And the 13th will be their last day. So if you can support the green market, please do.
Okay. Will
Great.
do.
Thank you.
Maybe they can have a flyer for next year, and we could then distribute it throughout the community.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. They usually do their flyer. They had one this year, but I don't know how widely it went out during the community, but it,
Right.
just so happens I get the green information, so I knew it was coming up. But
Okay.
they did have a flyer, but I don't know if they distributed it. But
Right.
usually their market starts, I believe, like in July or August, around there. It doesn't start in the spring. It starts like when it's really hot. So I want to say like July.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you for that information. And then if we have a flyer for the next time around, we can make sure that we get it to Ursula, and then she will distribute it via email to everyone up
Miss
here.
Bond, are you on the Green Markets email chain?
No,
I mean
I don't
the
believe
green
I don't believe
email
I am.
chain. Okay, I'll send that to you because I'm
Okay.
sure once you're on the email, you'll get the info.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, concerns, announcements of any kind? Please feel free to speak now. Okay. If I could get a motion to close this meeting.
I make a motion to close the meeting.
Okay. All right. Wait, hold on one second. Ms. Forbin, I'm sorry. Are you a community board member?
I don't think I am.
Okay.
I'm not
I'm
sure.
sorry. Thank you so much. But I think I have to get someone who's a community board member and a committee member to close the meeting. So, Ms. Agiria, could you please?
Oh, I don't know if you can hear me, but this is.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Ms.
No,
Martin,
it's
yes.
fine. It was a problem. It was slow. But yeah, I make a motion to close the meeting.
All right. Motion. Can we get a second? Ms. Agiria, can you second?
I
I
second.
don't think I can second.
I second.
All right. Thank you so much. The meeting is now coming to a close at 8:03. Thank you once again, community board members, and the community at large for your participation in this meeting this evening. Thank you so much. We value your time and your opinions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Ms.
Good
Bond.
night, everybody.
Bye.